have 1 week to decorate this Enhypen lightstick before their LA tour date. So let's get started. I already have a general idea of what I wanted to do with the lightstick, but it's all gonna depend on how it looks once I actually execute it. And as you can probably tell from the thumbnail, it's gonna require some gems. Specifically, these gems are the jelly resin crystal rhinestones, and they match really well with the Enhypen lightstick color. Then I like to use a wax pencil to pick up my gems, along with a diamond painting tray to help me realign the gems so that the flat back is facing the bottom. I also like to have a separate tool that isn't the wax pencil in order to help me move the gems around. And then we can't forget the holy grail that is B7000 glue, the perfect glue for rhinestones. As you can probably tell from the thumbnail, I didn't put anything inside of the lightstick, and that was because I couldn't. Unlike most globe lightsticks, the globe wasn't separated from the base and was in fact attached. To gain access in the middle, I would essentially have to crack the entire lightstick in half, which I wasn't going to do, so I just had to settle for blinging out the outside. And to do this, I actually needed a bunch of different sizes of gems. I first decided to do the ring on the top of the lightstick with the largest size gems I have. And this is me determining if this is a good fit or not, in which it fit perfectly. And you may be asking yourself, why is this segment grayed out compared to the rest of the video? And it's because the gems on here did not last. And if you're using this video as a tutorial, I don't want you to follow the parts that I ended up removing. And this is what it looked like after 5 minutes. It was really quick and easy. Next, it was time to do the bands that ran on the side of the globe. And for that, I moved on to my medium-sized gems. I'm just putting down glue in small segments at a time before using my wax pencil to pick up the gems to put them on the glue. And right now, I'm not really concerned on maximizing the space. I'm more worried about putting the gems on while the glue is still wet. Once all of the gems are down, I am then using my separate tool. In this case, it's a ballpoint paintbrush to move the gems in order for them to squeeze tightly next to each other. And I like to use a separate tool because sometimes when you use the wax pencil for this step, the wax pencil can leave a white residue on the gems. Once satisfied, I just then repeated the step again and again until it filled up the entire line. I then gave everything a quick pat down with my thumb to ensure they're stuck on. Since the gem I chose fit perfectly on half of the band, I just redid the process again on the other half, until I had something that looked like this. I then just repeated the process on the other side. This is what the lightstick looked like with both sides completed. And my next plan of action was to actually spell out Enhypen right here with pearls and then cover the entire section in gems. Pearls may sound like an odd choice, but I had a vision. But uh-oh, here comes the grayed out screen again, because even though I had a vision, the vision did not want to have me. Which does kind of suck because I did spend an hour doing the letters, and I even debated whether or not to show you this process. However, I really wanted to show you guys my authentic experience when it comes to decorating with lightsticks. And sometimes you just have to get rid of your hard work in order to achieve a better product. However, if you are looking to spell out Enhypen with gems, my suggestion is to start with the middle letter, then work your way outward so at least the lettering is centered. Because honestly, my biggest problem was to try to make the letters as small as possible, yet still making it legible. And I believe that I was able to do this to some degree, although I will say it is a lot more legible on screen than in person. Next, I added the gems around the word and then on the rest of the band, and I decided to choose the gems that were the same size as the one I used previously on the globe. And let's just say this is where everything went downhill. First, because the gray gems I chose were just too big for the space, and thus it swallowed up the lettering that I spent so long to do, and by the end of it, you could not read Enhypen at all. In fact, it was so bad I didn't even record what the final product looked like, and I just went straight to ripping it apart. For the parts where the glue was still wet, i.e. less than 24 hours since I put the glue on, it was fairly easy to remove. However, it was the part that I did the night before that made it really difficult to scrape off. I had to take numerous breaks because my hand was hurting, and with those breaks it probably took like 2 hours. It was not fun, but at least while removing these gems, I thought about what I would do instead. One very red hand later, I removed everything except for the band on top because I wanted to keep that as an outline. I then took some acetone or nail polish remover just to wipe off the residual glue that might have been on it. I still wanted to spell out Enhypen in gems, but I did want it to stand out better, so I came up with a different solution. This is star paper, strips of paper used to make paper stars, and I initially used them for my kpoplightstick, but now I found a purpose to use them here. Taking a silver strip, I'm gonna put it in the middle of the band on top and then spell out the word Enhypen on the silver strip. It was way easier to spell out Enhypen on the silver strip as I wasn't constrained into a space that I didn't really see. Although I did have to worry to make sure that all of my straight lines were actually straight and not slanted. I also didn't have to worry about centering it on the strip of paper as the paper was longer than the circumference of the band, so there would be extra paper anyways and I can adjust. But I essentially spelled out every letter in glue first and then added gems until I can clearly tell it said the letter that I wanted it to. And it actually turned out a lot better than I thought. I mean, you can clearly tell that says Enhypen. And to just show you what it looks like on the light stick, here it is. However, before gluing the strip of paper on, I did decide to outline the bottom of that base. Mostly just to create a cute border around the strip. I also did decide to remove the gems on top of the light stick because I was gonna add something else. It was tough because this is the most dried glue out of everything on this light stick. However, it being big gems really helped. I trimmed the strip of paper slightly to make it easier to glue on, and then I just used the same B7000 glue to glue it onto the light stick. I did spend some time ensuring that the strip of paper was centered to the band. This is what it ended up looking like and I am in love. I'm so glad I decided to do this method instead of the original one. Going back to the top of the light stick, I'm actually going to add a crown instead of the gems. I have more than one crown and it came in a set, and I initially bought them for the Enhypen light stick. However, by itself it looked kinda dumb. Then I decided to add a crown to the base of the light stick as well to help balance it out. And it looked great testing it out, so I'm gonna commit with glue. I used a combination of the B7000 glue and super glue. This is because I kind of wanted the strength of the super glue, but at the same time I was afraid it would leave a white residue, so I used the majority of the glue from the 7000 tube and then some super glue at little spots. I made sure that one of the prongs sticking up was aligned to the center of the light stick before putting it on. And it pretty much stuck on right away, but I did stop touching it just to make sure. While waiting for that to dry, I did move on to my next task, and that was to spell out EN- at the bottom of the light stick in the same manner as I spelled out Enhypen at the top of the light stick. But you already saw this process once, so I'm just gonna cut to the finished product. Here it is, and I really think it balances out the light stick. Speaking of balancing out, this is the second crown I'm adding to the light stick. Originally, the idea was to put it on top of the light stick, however, it was just too big and it would have looked funny. However, it is almost the exact circumference of this base, so I decided to glue it upside down here. But you already saw me glue a crown once, so here is the final product. The silvers in the crown and the paper really balance each other out. And you can see why I wanted to include pearls in the first place since the crown had it, but it turns out it wasn't really necessary. The bottom of the light stick was still looking a little too plain compared to the rest of the light stick, so I decided to draw out some designs with gems. I did draw it out with my iPad first just to see what design I wanted, and I settled on the upside down heart version that was on the top of the crown. I made sure to line the point of each of my designs to one of the points on the upside down crown just to keep everything symmetrical. And I ended up repeating the process 4 times, leaving me with this. Now, there is some poor planning on my part because there is a gap in between 2 of these upside down hearts. And honestly, with my time constraint, I'm okay with it because it is symmetrical and it doesn't look too crazy, especially since it's lined up in the center at the back. I am, however, gonna add gems to the tip of each of the upside down heart points, and I'm gonna add the same size gems I used for the band. And with that, we are done. Here is the final product. Honestly, if I started a week earlier, I probably would have added so many more things, but as of right now, this is perfect. I can still fit my finger underneath the crown in order to press the button, and this is what it looks like with the lights on. And this is what it looks like in the dark. I clearly still need to clean the globe out, but I think it's really cool I can still see the EN dash on the top of the light stick. He has a stunning silhouette and I honestly can't be any happier. If you guys liked the video, or if you use this tutorial to decorate your own light stick, please let me know as it greatly supports me. Let me know, are you going to the Enhypen World Tour? Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time.